The Oklahoma City Thunder select Chet Holmgren from Gonzaga University.
What a pass. Giddy underneath for JRE. The reverse and the rookie-to-rookie action. SGA defended closely by Westbrook. Tough. Step back. Gets up the shot. Banks it in for the lead.
This is Udart. You're listening to the Uncontested.
What is up, and welcome to the Uncontested Podcast, coming to you live Sunday, July 2nd. I'm your host for the evening, Jacob Niffen, running the two-man pick and roll tonight with my guy, Nick Crane.
Who would be better as the screener and the ball handler in a two-man pick and roll between you and I?
That's a good question, because the two times I've played pickup with you, and no, I love you, but you are not a fan of the pass option, Nick. So I think in order to make the pick and roll work, maybe you should set the screen and pop so I can pass to you.
Unless
you would not fit in Presti's Thunder.
Unless I'm just a great shot maker.
There you go. Just have him go under every time.
Yeah.
Pull up.
Yeah.
Maybe so.
I think I would be better as a screener, though. You're more willing to pass. You are the anti book night type of player.
I think I take pride in that.
You're more of a giddy, honestly.
I do like to pass the basketball frequently. We are brought to you by the Blue Wire Podcast Network and dailythunder.com. And boy, oh boy, do we have had a hell of a weekend in Thunderland. Have a hell of a week coming up, Nick. So before we dive in, let's let the people know what they can expect from us this next week. Tomorrow, Monday, July 3rd, we got a Summer League game. Thunder versus Utah. After that game, we will be going live with a post-game podcast for you. I believe that game is on NBA TV or illegal streams, wherever you can find them. We'll be live after that one. So you get a podcast late Monday night for your 4th of July. Tuesday, no podcast because there's no Summer League game. Wednesday, there is a Summer League game, so we'll podcast after that one. Thursday, there is a Summer League game, but that game will be taking place while Nick, Justin, Taylor, and I are on a flight to Las Vegas to cover Summer League for you guys. So that night, Thursday night, probably late night, we will go live from Las Vegas to break down all of Salt Lake Summer League and preview Vegas Summer League for you. That is on Thursday. No pod on Friday. The Thunder play, I think, Central Time 2:30, Las Vegas time 12:30 Saturday. They're I think the first game of the day on ESPN2 against the Dallas Mavericks. We will have a post-game podcast after that on Saturday. And then lastly, a week from today on Sunday, no 9 p.m. stream next Sunday because we will be live from the Blue Wire studio in the Wynn Hotel and Casino in downtown Las Vegas with a early morning show for you West Coasters. If you're Central Time Zone, if you're East Coast, I think it's going to be around like 11 a.m. or noon, Nick?
It will be
10 a.m., 11 a.m., something like that.
If we're recording 8 a.m. in Vegas, it'll be 10 Central.
There you go. So Next Sunday, early show. Catch us live on the stream here as we will be live from the Wynn studio. If you missed us last year at the Wynn, production value is going to be insane. We're going to look like we're anchoring like the 11 p.m. Sports Center. It's going to be dope. Nick, Taylor, Justin, and myself will all be out there. We have a crap ton of stuff coming for you this week. There's podcasts like 5 days this week. All the content coming your way. So keep it glued to the Uncontested on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and wherever you download your podcasts at. I think I got it all, Nick.
You know better than I. You tell me where to go and I'll be there. You're like the fearless leader. Sometimes I feel like I don't have to actually know what's going on. I just take your guidance.
All right. Well, Nick, get on the airplane Thursday night.
I can do that.
Okay, good. And then we'll see you in Vegas. A lot of cool stuff planned while we're in Vegas. We're going to have so much content for you guys. It's going to be a blast. Cannot wait to get back out there. It's going to be fun. All right, Nick. It's been a busy weekend. A very busy weekend. Let's start with Summer League, and then we'll get into all the free agency stuff. Thunder have released the Summer League schedule. They dropped that Saturday. So everyone can, you can get online and see that. The Summer League will, the roster will probably change, and we'll talk about that in a second. But first question, Nick, the schedule. They're in Salt Lake, and then they're in Vegas. We know who they are playing. Any thoughts, any matchups you're looking forward to in any of those two Summer League rounds?
I was really looking forward to Utah, but I don't know if their top 2 picks are going to play, or 2 of their top 3 picks are going to play, because Hendricks and Sensabaugh are both questionable with some lingering injuries. So there's a chance to have 3 first-rounders from the Jazz in that very first game with Chet and some of the other guys coming back. So that game's not as enticing now. Looking forward a bit to Summer League. I think the Rockets game will be fun. There's a lot of drama surrounding the Rockets right now and all their moves. Frankly, 3 of their top would have been Summer League guys have been shipped out recently. But they got a lot of guys coming in as well, like the Amen Thompsons of the world and Cam Whitmore's of the world. So I think if I were to circle one game out of the, 7 that are currently scheduled, and then they're going to have one more beyond that, whether it's, or maybe potentially 2 if they go to the Vegas championship. But out of the 7 games currently scheduled, I think I'm circling Houston.
I think that's fair. The Houston one will be fun. Actually, the final 3 are kind of interesting ones. So they open with the Jazz on Monday, tomorrow. Then they have Memphis on Wednesday. Not really a whole lot of people I'm super interested in.
GG.
That's about it. Yeah.
He'll be fun.
Philly on Thursday. They don't have a lot of really fun young guys. The Mavs will kind of be an interesting one because we'll get to see Derek Lively Jr. Who's the G League kid they drafted that played last year?
Jaden Hardy.
Might see Jaden Hardy. But then those last 3, Rockets, Pacers, Wizards. That's a fun one.
3 teams that were, what were they, top 7?
Top 8.
8? Yeah,
yep.
Top 8. Because Washington traded up with Indiana. Yep.
Definitely. The Pacers game, we'll get to see Jarris Walker. The Washington game, we'll get to see Bilal Coulibaly. The Rockets game, we'll get to see, like you mentioned, a lot of young guys, including Amen Thompson.
Yep.
They're going to play Jabari Smith Jr., right?
They have to. If
last year they didn't play Şengün.
If Oklahoma City is playing Jalen Williams, who had a really good rookie year, Houston has to play Jabari Smith, who did not have a great rookie year. He needs the reps.
I would agree. Do you trust anything with Houston?
No, I don't.
Yeah. I am with you. So we talked about the roster for Summer League. The big thing when you look at the roster, a few big things. Chet's on there.
Yep.
He's gained 13 pounds per what they've put down. Ousmane Dieng, it's kind of hard to get weight numbers on him from last year. Some places you look and it's 195. Some places you look and it's 215. But Us is listed at 220. You mentioned both Jalen's will play.
Yep.
Trey Mann will play.
Yep.
Any interesting takeaways from there for you, Nick? Most guys only play 2 years of Summer League. Trey is playing 3. Poku also played 3.
Yep. I get a sense we will only see J-Dub in Salt Lake City. Though
I kind of felt that way too.
I think we felt that way with Josh last year, and that wasn't the case. Chet, I'll be curious with him. I think the whole Vegas thing is big. Players would prefer to play in Vegas versus Salt Lake City. I wonder if Chet plays all 3 Salt Lake games, or it's so easy to pull the card of like they play the third, great. They play the fifth and the sixth. Does he just play one of those two because it's like back-to-back games and he's still coming off injury and he only plays 2 in Salt Lake and then maybe 1 or 2 in Vegas. It'll be interesting to see a couple of these guys like when they actually play and in which games.
Definitely. Jeremiah Robinson Earl on the roster. This will be year 3 for him. Aaron Wiggins not on the roster.
Not on there.
Is he too good for Summer League? It's kind of interesting.
A lot of these guys are too good for Summer League, but
agree.
I think Aaron has shown enough that's like when he goes in there, he plays like a vet, like in real life NBA basketball. We're not talking Summer League preseason. Did he get the most opportunity last year? No, but we've all seen the stat. Like when Aaron Wiggins plays 20 plus minutes, like the Thunder are good. He's a guy that goes in there and he produces. So I would take the Aaron Wiggins not being on the roster as a positive, not as a like they've given up on him. Because here's the reality. They've given up on nobody. They are taking all these guys into camp. Whatever happens, happens. But we're at early July, not even to Summer League yet. There's nobody on this roster, be it who's under contract, like the 18 guys under contract, or the Summer League guys. None of them have been given up on. Makes no sense.
Totally agree. Nick, the one big thing from the Summer League roster is not a name that's on the list, but a name that is not on the list. And the Thunder's number 10 overall pick, Cason Wallace. What's up with that?
So he cannot play in Salt Lake City. I think he technically probably could play the last game in Salt Lake, but given he was a draft night trade, there's the whole delay and like the rights to the player actually being traded and then signing them. July 6th is the date where those guys can he'll officially be part of the Thunder. If you guys have been keeping up with socials, some of the guys have been putting out like TikToks and stuff, and he's wearing the NBA Players Association shirt because I don't think he can legally wear Thunder gear yet, outside of like the pictures he took on Media Day and stuff. So it'll be interesting to see how they go about that. Is it going to be like a PR tweet that says he's been added to the roster? Do they not do anything? But I would imagine we don't see him till Vegas, even though he probably could play on the 6th.
Yeah, he might play on the 6th. I mean, I bet they're gonna that thing.
He's with the team.
There's a queue for the NBA like league office of all these trades that have been agreed to and just cannot legally go through until the changing of the fiscal year.
Yeah,
which will be on the 6th. So I bet once the 6th happens, these backlogged things from draft night and later all the way up to the 6th, they're all in queue ready to go, and they're just going to ding, 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 and rattle them all off. So I think
I'd want Vegas to be my debut if I was Cason. I'd say, yeah, I could play today, but let's do Vegas. Let's go against Dallas, the team that traded my rights. There was no.
I didn't think of that. That's a fun.
It's dumb. Subplot. It's dumb, but I think that would be the most fun thing.
I agree. I think Micic should play Summer League. Could you imagine?
At 29. He is in the category of too good for Summer League.
You say that. No, I would probably agree with that. Last Summer League question for you. What are you looking for? Like a lot of guys playing. Obviously, we're just excited to see them play basketball. But specifically, like what things are you looking for from who as far as developmental trajectories? Again, Summer League can't take much away from it, but you can see how guys' style of play and what they've worked on and all this other stuff. What are you looking for out of Summer League, Nick?
Yep. I'll give you 2 player-specific ones. One, JRE, whose contract is now guaranteed for next year, though that doesn't mean he's going to make the team.
Easy to waive that $1.9 million or whatever it is.
Right. I'm to a point where I think if he's going to stick in the NBA, at his current position at least, like he could go to a different system and look like a different player playing a different role. But in Oklahoma City, it seems he's going to be this kind of undersized center, kind of floor spacing 4. If he can't knock down threes at a very high clip, I don't know how valuable he is with how competitive this roster is getting. Like we saw him in year 1 knock down threes at a very high clip, and he looked really intriguing. Last year, there was injuries and all that. didn't shoot it as well. And there's a lot of times it was just like, I don't know what he's bringing relative to some of the other guys, right? So looking for his 3-point shot. Caleb McConnell, who signed a summer league contract with the Thunder. This is going to be a hot take. Maybe I'll clip it in a couple months if it ends up being right. Back-to-back Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year. Older prospect. Like the advanced stats and analytics on his defense are like off the charts. He is not a good offensive player, shoots horrible from all over the floor, but as a defensive player, kind of gives me Herb Jones vibes. Like if he can even be 70% of what Jones is for New Orleans on like a 2-way in Oklahoma City that maybe works his way up, intrigues. Like out of all the guys, you see these summer league rosters and like you recognize a lot of the names, but there's also probably half the list that the average Thunder fans like, who is this guy? Out of the category of who that guy, I'd pick McConnell as the guy that I'm most intrigued by because of the defensive upside.
Okay, not who I expected at all.
Who would your, if we're going to categorize the who that guy type of player that the average Thunder fan has never heard the name, who are you most excited for?
Oh, out of like not the guys that like I actually think are going to be contributors next year.
Right. Like if you had to pick the guy that just comes out of nowhere and it's like, man, he had a great summer league and let's sign him to a 2-way.
For that question, I will go either Zaire Smith out of Texas Tech. He's been around for a while. Or Jared Butler.
Okay.
So
I like both.
Things that I'm looking for in summer league. Number one, Oos.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see the Oos we saw in summer league last year versus the Oos we saw in some G League games. And in some of those, like there was that Atlanta game last year. There was that last game of the season last year. There was that home game against Golden State last year. Those were like two different types of players. Nick, you'll remember we were in Vegas and sitting next to each other, talking to each other about, man, Usman needs to be more aggressive, needs to be more physical, needs that dog in him. I'm excited to see what that looks like at Summer League. Even if he like misses all of his threes and makes some like poor passes or whatever, like I think the skill is there.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see him try to catch a body. I want to see him like guard somebody in the post and like try to knock a guy off his spot. Like I want to see aggressive Oos.
I agree with you. And I think the aggressiveness and the physicality and the added weight are obviously very, very key for his development. I still need to see like the foot speed, the lateral quickness, the kind of ability to switch direction. I just feel like as a defender on offense, like he's got so much upside that he can handle and play like off-ball guard / wing. He's now getting big enough he could play the 4 more frequently against bigger guys. But defensively, if he's going to reach his ceiling, he's going to have to be able to move his feet quickly and defend. And last season, that wasn't the case at all. Like it almost looked like he had bricks for feet at times, and adding weight is obviously not going to help that. So as he bulks up a bit, I also want to see him get a bit lighter on his feet, which is a hard thing to do, but I think he's got to do both.
For sure. And I think there's a balance of like being light on your feet and being able to stay in front of like a guard or whatever, and also being a guy that's nearly 7 foot.
Yeah.
And knowing how to utilize angles and your length and your athleticism to guard those guys. Right.
Yeah.
And those are just like the small intricacies of the NBA game. So Oos is a big one for me. Obviously, I'm just super excited to see Chet. He's added some weight. He's had a year to kind of digest what NBA basketball looks like. He's had a year to work on his jump shot. I'm stoked to see that guy. And I think it's a big summer league for Trey Mann. I mean, we're going to get into it in just a second, but Trey Mann was really the only like stereotypical guard on this team, meaning like on the defensive end, he can only guard 1s and 2s. Now you've got Kason Wallace. Now you've got Micic. Now you've maybe got Patty Mills. Now you've maybe got Victor Oladipo. Like you've got a lot of guys now. Presti's talked about it multiple times. They are going to let guys fight for spots, and they're not afraid to let guys go and let the competition make the cream rise to the crop. Rise to the top, not the cream rise to the crop. The cream rise to the top.
You're mixing anecdotes now.
Yes. Past 2 summer leagues with Trey. You were there 2 years ago. We were both there last year.
Mm-hmm.
We talked a lot about he's got the moves, he's got the step back, he can create the space. Just not hitting the shots, not finishing plays. That's not going to fly anymore. Like it's kind of put up or shut up time for Trey at this point. Yeah. And I think maybe Trey has a longer leash than some other guys because you invested a full 4-year rookie scale contract and pick 18 to that guy, whereas other guys that you took in the second round, maybe like you're less invested in them because they cost less, right? But it's going to be interesting. I think he needs a good summer league. Go ahead.
I'll just comment on Trey. It's not uncommon for a guy to have I wouldn't call it a great rookie year. Like I think if you looked back at his rookie numbers compared to his class, he's probably 15th to 20th best rookie that season when he was drafted 18. So like he performed as expected as a rookie. He had some really, really, really high flashes. Year 2 was a bit down, but that's not uncommon. Like most players, the average, the non J-Dub, Josh Giddey, those types of players, most of the NBA, when you're drafted in the first round, it takes 3 years to really know what you have with the guy. And I know it's super easy to say, Oklahoma City's getting all these guards. Trey Mann had a down year. He had the comments and, end of season presser. Year 3 is the year. What happens in year 3, we will forget, good or bad, what happened in year 1 and 2. If Trey comes out and has like this Jordan Poole explosion we've talked about, no one talks about year 1 and 2. Doesn't matter. Or if he's really bad and is no longer on the team after this year, no one's going to be talking about how great he was as a rookie. So like at this point, it doesn't matter what happened the last 2 years. It's all about year 3, which is probably the most important year for a rookie or for a new NBA player.
Totally agree. Any other summer league thoughts before we move on?
No, just I expect this to be one of those, just like previous years, where the Thunder will have a roster good enough to win it all, but at some point we're going to be
at summer league. Just so we're clear, good enough to win it all.
Yes,
at summer league.
Yes, correct.
Not an NBA title.
There is a 4-team playoff and a championship game now in Vegas, and they will have the talent to win that. But them and other teams by Monday or Tuesday of Vegas, which is kind of the halfway point, there will not be many guys playing anymore. So
yeah, they want to get
enjoy the first 5 games.
Yeah, they are 0% interested in winning summer league, and they are way more interested in exploring all of the guys they gave summer league roster spots to see who can make it, who can't, who's the guy we want on our G League team, who's the guy we want on 2A. They're not gunning for a summer league title. They are gunning for, can we get all 15 of these guys minutes?
Yeah. Agreed.
All right, let's take our first break of the night. On the other side, we are going to talk about all the stuff that has been happening since Friday. All right, we are back. Free agency kicked off Friday night, 6 p.m. Central Time. And it was a wild evening, Nick. It's actually been a wild few days, especially when you factor in that the number one source of NBA information comes from a little old website called Twitter.com.
Yeah.
Who the billionaire owner decided to tank on maybe the biggest NBA action day of the year. So that was, interesting.
And it's only been like just over 48 hours since the start of free agency, and it feels like so much has happened.
It does, for sure. So we know some of our listeners are like diehard Thunder fans, like the degenerates over here in the chat tonight who are just blowing it up. Diehards. They've followed everything. We know some people listen to the podcast who aren't really diehard Thunder fans. They're Thunder fans, but maybe they don't have Woj and Shams on Twitter notifications. Maybe they're not on Twitter, and so aren't keeping up with all the movement around the NBA as intently as the rest of us.
Oh, if I was on vacation and not checking my phone for the last 48 hours, and then I got service or something coming back from Mexico and had to go catch up on what happened with the Thunder, I don't know if I could connect those dots without like really just sitting down and researching for a couple hours.
Brain explosion.
Yeah.
So here's what Nick and I are going to do. We are going to break down every move that the Thunder have made in the past 48-ish hours chronologically. And then we're going to tell you why the Thunder made that move. Cue up the Brian Windhorst now. Why would they do that? There you go. Oh my gosh.
I think it's important too to mention before we get into the chronological of the last 48 hours, before the start of free agency on Friday evening, the Thunder really made their first move of the offseason in acquiring Davis Bertans from the Dallas Mavericks, which cut their salary cap number almost in half from like 35, 36 to more like 17. Mm-hmm. So just to set the stage on that piece, I know I've seen people on Twitter upset that the Thunder took on the contracts they did over the past 48 hours. Like, why didn't they just sign Cam Johnson? Just to put that out there, before free agency started, that 35 million number that's been floated out there was cut in half to about 17.
Yep. And that's why that trade hasn't gone through yet, because they have to wait till they actually have the cap space.
Yep.
Because last season's fiscal year technically hasn't ended yet. All right, so here we go. The first thing the Thunder did in free agency was they acquired Victor Oladipo from the Miami Heat, along with draft compensation. This one came through at about 10:45 p.m. Central Time, Friday night. Nick, one question about this move.
Now, why does that matter? Why would the
Thunder
do that? Why would they do that?
So why did the Thunder decide to trade for Victor Oladipo, who has a torn patellar tendon? I think it's third major injury. He's played less than 20 games in the last 3 years, like each year.
Sad.
Very, because I really like Vic a lot. The Thunder bring Victor Oladipo back. They get draft compensation. They don't send anything out. They are taking Victor Oladipo and his nearly $10 million into cap space. Why are they doing that?
I'll start by saying it's been a long time since I've said the words Victor and didn't follow it with Wembanyama. So anytime you say Victor, I'm like,
Spurs got the second best Victor in June.
Yeah. This is the classic. I mean, per usual, as crazy as the Thunder's off seasons and trades over the past few years have felt, we should have seen it coming. Like 3 years in a row, it's been bring on Al Horford attached to an asset, bring on Kemba Walker attached to an asset, bring on Derek Favors attached to an asset. This is the same thing. It's reported after the fact that 2 future second round picks were attached to Vic for basically just bringing him on. So instead of going out there, I'm not going to call any teams out, and just spending money because you have cap space, like, you can get more creative than that. You can go use your cap space to add assets. And that's what this first move was, hey, if you'll take on Oladipo's contract, a guy that I don't want to be dark here, but may never play NBA basketball again, you take on his almost $10 million, we'll give you 2 future seconds. And I'll remind people, picks and draft compensation in general are a lot different than they've been in the past. I think there's always been this notion of like second rounders don't matter and teams just throw around first round picks. Not really anymore. Like some of these last few trades we've seen, like post Rudy Gobert, firsts are hard to come by. It's more swaps and seconds. Like the trade deadline was like, here's 5 firsts for a really impactful player. And here's
5 seconds.
5 seconds. And here's a couple seconds for a guy that we like a little bit more than the guy we're attaching it to. So like taking on 2 seconds, while it seems insignificant, these types of moves add up. And when the Thunder need their Jay Crowder or their like 7th man on a contending team down the road, The 5 second-round picks they're going to trade are second-round picks they got from moves just like this, where they gave up nothing to get it.
Totally agree. Sam told us at his end of season press conference that they were going to have cap space, and they typically weren't a free agent team, but he said cap space is an asset, and you have to find ways to utilize your asset. It's exactly what they did here.
Like I said, we should have seen it coming.
All right, next one, Nick. The next morning, Thunder signed Visilije Micic to a 3-year, $23.5 million deal. This one came through at 11:30 a.m. Central Time on Saturday, also known as the time that Twitter went under, and we were told we could only look at like 50 tweets for the day. Not post 50 tweets, look at 50 tweets. So everyone started making burners. Question, Nick.
Now, why does that matter? Why would the
Thunder
Jazz do that? Why would they do that?
What's up with the Micic? So if you only listen to the podcast and you aren't on YouTube.
Yeah, give us the TLDR on the emergency stream that you did, because I didn't get a chance to catch it yet.
Yeah, I did an emergency stream. I forgot to post it to the pod stream, so sorry. But it's a YouTube special, so go watch it on YouTube. I'm shocked. I didn't think it was going to happen. Even with all the breadcrumbs, he got a new NBA agent back in March. He flew over to OKC in June. Presti talked about how they have this great relationship. Word was coming out that he's ready to make the jump. I didn't think it was going to be Oklahoma City. My predictions in order, Nick, as of 4 days ago. Top of the line, Micic is playing NBA basketball for a non-OKC Thunder team next year. Second, Micic is back in Europe with a very lucrative contract. Third and last, Micic is playing basketball in OKC. I just didn't think it was going to happen. And here we are, the 29-year-old, two-time EuroLeague MVP, EuroLeague champ, 6'4", 6'5", kind of combo-y playmaking guard out of Serbia. It's coming to little old Oklahoma City. Finally, after years of flirting with it, he will be. I'm still very surprised this is happening.
Yeah, I am surprised as well. Not because I thought there was no chance. It was just like we've seen this before, like multiple summers in a row. The rumors, the potential of him coming over, never doing it. So I was surprised. Like I thought there was a bigger chance this summer. Obviously, I personally didn't think it was going to happen. And if you'd have told me the Thunder are going to sign or trade for Victor Oladipo, Patty Mills, and acquire Kayson Wallace in the draft, I would have said definitely no way. Another guard, no. Do I think it's a good move? Yeah. And I also think it's a good move to not trade his rights and to sign him yourself. And that obviously took a sign of approval from him because he had things that he wanted to come over. And I think that speaks to his confidence in the Thunder being a good team. But back to the point of not trading his rights. I personally, this is a personal opinion, I feel if you traded Micic's rights today, you're probably not going to get much. Like a couple seconds. I don't think you're getting a first for Micic unless it's like a contending team giving like a more near-term first that you're pretty sure is going to be like 28, 29, 30. So trading him now, you're probably not going to get a ton of value. If you play him and he's not good, fine. You missed out on a couple seconds maybe on the trade market. If he is good, you're like, thank God we didn't trade him for nothing and just give away his rights. So great move, bringing him into Oklahoma City. I have a question for you, Jacob, and it sounds insane.
Okay.
Given Oklahoma City's rookie class is now Kayson Wallace, Keontae Johnson, Chet Holmgren, and Micic. From a impact winning standpoint, because I think 3 of those guys are going to be big time rotation players. do the Thunder have the most impactful rookie class in the entire NBA?
Oh, that's a tough one.
And as you think about that, whether the answer is yes or no, think about how good they were last year without any of those guys.
I know.
And the fact that they're bringing those guys in. Just a thought
It really
exercise.
comes down to like how impactful do you feel that Wembanyama is going to be? Right? I think
You
that's
think
the
Wemby's
only
going to be
other.
more impactful than those three combined, though?
I don't think so. Not more than those three combined. So yeah, I mean, I'd take them. I would take
Yeah.
those three. You mentioned like not trading him. Multiple sources have said the Jazz were very interested in trading for him on draft night, and the Thunder like routinely turned them away. Said no, we're keeping him.
Meaning the package probably was not great, which is why you don't flip a guy whenever.
Could
he
be.
hadn't
What
played.
if it was like 12 and Micic to get to 9, which I don't think it was. Do you think the
I s-
Thunder still say no there?
Probably. I think if they wanted to get to 9, they could get to 9 without giving up Micic. If they wanted to get
Yeah,
to
they
9.
got to
they've
10 anyways and got their guy.
Right. And If
Right.
they wanted to get to 9, they throw future firsts or,
Totally
they had other
agree.
ways of getting there if they wanted to.
I think it's significant in the sense that he had very clearly said, this is the money I want. This is the role I want. This is the type of team I want to play for. He, I think maybe went down a little bit on the money. He's getting like 7.5 a year. But the role thing, like he's not going to start on this team. Some people might tell you he should start. I would have a very, very, very hard time seeing him start if it's not injury related. None of those starting guys you are moving to the bench for him.
He could play starter minutes a lot of nights, though.
Yes, but I don't think he's going to be announced in the starting lineup. To me, this signals like he sees the vision. In the 3 years that he's going to play here, he foresees himself playing postseason basketball in the NBA.
Yeah.
And I think that's significant. I think
Yeah,
that is
I mean-
significant. I think if you're, again, the Thunder aren't going to play like traditional lineups. It's not the point guard comes off and then the backup point guard comes in. Like they're not doing that, right? It's very explicitly been laid out. They're not going to do that. But he and Kason coming off the bench with Kenny Hustle and Usman Jang,
Isaiah
and
Joe,
and Poku.
Bertans. Think
Like-
about the shooting this bench has now.
Oh, dude. Remember those times when last year when they would keep Shea as the only starter and just put 4 shooters around him?
Yeah.
That's like crank it to 11 now.
You could put Chet, Poku, Bertans, Joe out there with Shea, and you'd have 7'1", 7 foot, 6'10", 6'5" around Shea. So that's a lineup that has the size at every position that you need and can play every one of those positions. You probably have to put Bertans at the 4 and Poku at the 3 and Chet at the 5. Anyways, you could do that and play Shea with 4 shooters, and they're actually 4 guys that have the ability to shoot 40% from 3. When's the last time the Thunder had 4 guys that they could put around their core piece that could shoot 40% from 3? Ever?
I don't think so.
Have they ever had that?
It's going to be awesome.
It'd be fun.
It's going to be a lot of fun. They have a lot of guys who are going to need rotational minutes too.
And I didn't even mention Patty Mills, who we'll talk about in a bit, who may or may not be on the team, but like, they got some shooters, man.
You ready to go on to the next one?
Let's hear it.
Okay. The next move came later that evening. The Thunder signed Australian wing, former Denver two-way player, Jack White, to a 2-year contract. This came across 6 p.m. Central Time on Saturday. Nick?
Now, why does that matter? Why would the
Thunder.
Jazz do that? Why would they do that?
So for this one here, this is maybe the most interesting of all the signings.
I agree.
And I think
And-
you have some information.
Yeah,
that
let me
you got
follow
on
up real
Twitter.
quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So I hope I pronounced this right. Olgun Oluk of ESPN over in Australia covers the NBL, covers NBA prospects playing in the NBL. I tweeted at him on Saturday and said, like, hey, are we sure this isn't like another two-way deal? And his response, and I will read it verbatim for you guys. He responds and says, yes, I can confirm it is not a two-way deal. Meaning the Thunder have given a guaranteed contract to Jack White. Nick,
Yup.
I've had you like take the reins.
Yeah, go ahead.
I want to jump on this one just real fast.
Yep.
This is an interesting one that caught me completely off guard, and I had no clue who this kid was. He is going to play FIBA for Australia with Josh this summer. Thunder fans are going to have a lot of teams to watch this summer. You're going to have to watch Canada. You're going to have to watch Serbia. You're going to have to watch Australia. There's a lot of Oklahomans who might not cheer for Team USA in FIBA basketball this year, which is kind of funny. My assumption is that this is probably a 2-year deal, but it's like second year, like non-guaranteed or partial guaranteed. Maybe in the first year is like partial guarantee, and they're just going to take him to camp. And at worst case, they're going to waive him and let him get a bit of a bag and go play in a two-way with somebody. Best case, he earns himself a starting spot. But I am not putting Jack White in pen as one of my 15 rostered guys on opening night.
No. Not at all. I think that's the piece of the moves that have been made so far, is that like the overwhelming concern is the roster crunch. Frank Jackson, great example, Matt. Like, just because a guy is signed, Frank Jackson's an example where he was signed, he was waived. And whether this deal is first year guaranteed, second not, both years guaranteed, none of it guaranteed. Doesn't really matter what the guarantees are. One, this is not going to be a significant deal in terms of dollars and cents. So regardless of the guarantees, he can be waived. The Thunder can choke on that money. No big deal. Same with all the other guys they've traded for. They're probably going to take this into training camp. Some of these guys may get waived or traded or aggregated before then, but like they don't have to figure out the roster crunch today. It's July 2nd.
Mm-hmm.
They've got July to August, September, early October, like 3 or more months to figure this out. We saw how much changed in the last 24 hours, 48 hours. We got 3 months for them to figure out the roster crunch. Like these guys, they're signing. There's no guarantee. Jeremiah Robinson-Earl got his contract guaranteed. He may not be on the team opening night. Like, no need to panic today. Everything will iron itself out.
Isn't there, I don't know if you'll have the answer to this, Nick. The Thunder in the past have like signed guys and then immediately turned around and waived them, because if you do that, then you have their rights to the G League.
Yeah.
And so like other people can't pick them up away from you. Like you have first dibs on sending them to a two-way. I don't know if this is something like
usually
that.
Usually that's not like a 2-year deal kind of thing. That's like Exhibit 10 does give you some sort of precedence. And if you sign guys to like even a standard training camp deal does give you some ability to sign guys. I don't think that's what this is. It could be there's agent favors all the time. It's like, we'll give you your guy a year guaranteed. He may get waived. We'll sign him to this or that to kind of get a handshake that he'll play for your G League team or whatever it is. I don't think this is one of those, but I do think the Thunder believe, and if you look at his G League stats, like you could make the argument he's too good for the G League based on what he produced last year.
He hooped in the G League. I want you to know,
good.
I have watched a full 2.5 minutes of this kid. Here are my takeaways. On the court, this kid got that dog, Nick.
Yep.
He got that dog in him.
Yep.
Dunks like everything. Got a nice looking jumper. And then his little like G League profile picture kind of looks like Rob Stark.
Must be nice.
King of the North.
That's
about all I got.
The only thing you need to know about him, Australia is a very, very talented country when it comes to basketball in the NBA. Their FIBA team, which you alluded to earlier, has 10 current NBA players. One of those 10 is him. They've also got Ben Simmons. They got Kyrie Irving. They got Dante Exum, who's got signed to a deal. So there's, in the NBA next season, there's going to be 13 to 15 NBA players from Australia. They're like eligible for their national team. And he is playing for them. So it's not like he's playing for some country you never heard of. Like, he is good enough to play for Australia's FIBA team. That says something.
I agree. I'm excited to watch him play FIBA.
It'll be fun.
Josh Giddey, the best Australian NBA player currently?
You
said Kyrie. I forgot Kyrie.
I don't think he'd ever play for the Australian team. I don't think he has, at least.
I think at Ben Simmons' height, Ben Simmons was better than Josh.
Yes. So
but right now, I think Josh is the best Australian player in the world right now.
Their FIBA team is Giddey, Mills, Matisse, Ingles, Jock Landell, Josh Green, Dellavedova, Xavier Cooks, good. Jack White, Dyson Daniels. So probably?
Yeah, I don't think it's a probably. To me, that one's pretty clear. Like, who's in competition?
I mean, he should be the best player on their national team. But then we've talked about the Ben Simmons, the Kyrie Irving.
If you are picking somebody right now, you're out of all of those guys to play on your team, you're picking Josh. Yeah?
I think the answer is yes, whether the question is right now or to build a team around. So, yeah.
Yeah. Totally agree. All right, we ready to move on to the next one? That enough?
Yeah, let's keep it in Australia, though. What do you say?
Let's do it. The next one came across today at 1 p.m. Central Time. The Thunder trade for Patty Mills. Patty's Meals. Hey, that's fast food opportunity for Patty back in Australia once he retires. Patty Mills Meals. Patty Mills, in a 4-team deal, they receive draft compensation for taking him on. I believe this 4-team deal is Brooklyn, Memphis, Oklahoma City, and Houston. He's coming over as part of the sign-in trade that is getting Houston, Dillon Brooks. Nick, really easy question for you.
Why does that matter? Why would the
Thunder
do that? Why would they do that?
This is another win-win. I think it's a little different than Oladipo because Patty Mills can actually play opening night. Like, Oladipo's 6-month window of recovery would be like the first week of the season. Then he's got to do the whole 0-on-0 to 5-on-0 to 5-on-5 to like making his way back on the floor. So like Oladipo's not going to be ready opening night. He also may never be fully healthy again. Patty Mills, although I think he'll be 35 here pretty soon, can play. Like, he's a guy that the Nets were weird last year where they traded everybody. The end of the season didn't matter. But the year before that, when they were trying to win it all, he shot 40% from 3 on like 7 or 8 attempts a game. Like, he is a contributor to a legitimate basketball team. So you get assets for bringing him on, and his deal is like 6.8. It's not like he's a $15 million a night or a year kind of guy. Small contract, older but proven, has won a championship, incredible shooter. Like, if you waive him, you got the draft picks. If you keep him, he's got a role on this team. Like, if Patty Mills is your 12th man, that's like a utility guy, like come in and knock down some threes or in a playoff series, and you got him for free with assets attached, that one was a no-brainer for me. Like, Oladipo made a lot of sense. The Patty Mills deal, like, that's smart. That's very, very, very smart. I don't know why Houston just didn't keep it as it was and take him, because the original deal was that Houston was going to take him on and get the draft capital attached. And they somehow have made this a larger deal, probably because they want to absorb Dillon Brooks into a trade versus just cap space outright. But like, good for Sam Presti. That's a hell of a deal.
For what it's worth, at the end of the day, I know we have until October for them to make roster decisions. At the end of the day, my guess is Oladipo and Mills both just get bought out. They're expiring contracts. They would still have to make more moves to get to the 15-man roster. It's not going to happen. But it's interesting to think about. You have 10 million in expiring in Oladipo. You have nearly 7 million in expiring in Patty Mills. You have 17 million in Davis Bertans, who's not expiring, but nobody's playing him 75% of the games next year. And so he's only going to be guaranteed 5 million the next year.
And how bad, realistically, Jacob, with the new CBA and TV money coming up and some of these deals these guys are getting in free agency, how bad is 17 million?
Not at all.
Not that bad.
Yeah, not at all. You package those three to make a consolidation move. Like a lot of times I think we think consolidation moves is like trading lots of picks for fewer picks that are better, or trading 3 or 4 of these young guys into one guy. You put those three together, plus some draft picks, with the way salary matching works, you could go get a guy making 40 million. I don't think they're going to do that, but you could, which is kind of fascinating.
And that was something that last year, let's say the Thunder, and this would never be something Presti would do, but last year, let's say the Thunder having a great season. They're 6 games above 500 at the deadline, and there's an opportunity to trade, like a consolidation trade that we all think is coming at some point for a superstar or like a young star that's blooming. They didn't really have a mechanism of doing so. Like at some point, it was like Dort plus 6 guys that make 4 to 8 million a piece. Like they didn't have the dollars. Like I know there's like you can take in more money than you send out if you have cap space and all that. Like they didn't have the contracts to match these kind of deals. Now they do. And whether they do it or not, having the flexibility to do these types of trades is really intriguing.
100%. Just to throw out some names, I don't think the Thunder would trade these 3 guys in draft capital to bring back a star. I don't see it happening. It could, very much so. I just don't see it. But in looking at guys that make around that 40 million, you've got Rudy Gobert. I don't think the Thunder are touching that. You've got Zach LaVine. You've got Tobias Harris. A lot of Thunder fans are really hung up right now on Pascal Siakam. Ben Simmons. I don't know how many more years Ben Simmons has on his contract. But if the Thunder traded 3 expiring contracts to bring in Ben Simmons and clear Brooklyn's books for them, you might be able to get some assets for that.
Yeah.
And then you can
you trade the guys for assets.
And then you trade them away to get in more assets.
That is the most Sam Presti thing I think I've ever heard.
I think it's an interesting one.
Yeah.
Just doing something like that, Yeah. Any more thoughts on Patty Mills? I think he could play on this team for sure. I just don't foresee it happening. That's just my opinion, though.
Yeah.
I see him as a buyout guy.
If I had to put money on it, I don't think he is going to play, but it's nice knowing that outside of Oladipo, like the guys that they've brought in between Bertans and Mills, if you're keeping them, they can actually play. Like they would likely be in a rotation.
Agreed.
There's a case that Bertans is washed and got overpaid, but like recency bias. Go back and look before he got traded to Dallas what he was doing in Washington, and everyone's gonna say, but it was Washington. They sucked. It was empty stats. Systems are a real thing in the NBA. Like you could be a really good player and go to a system that doesn't fit what you like to do or what you're best at, and you can look pretty bad. Like I would not count out Bertans in 6 months being an asset that's attractive to other teams because he looks a lot better in Oklahoma City than he did in Dallas.
Could definitely see it. Anything else before we move on to our next segment, Nick?
Let's do it. Nothing from me.
All right, let's take a quick break. On the other side, we asked fans for questions for tonight's show. You guys absolutely delivered. So we will get to those Twitter questions. Also, for those of you in the chat, if you got any questions you want us to ask, get them in now because I can't scroll all the way back up to the top. There's too many comments in there. So if you have questions, get them in now. We'll also answer those. We will be right back. And we are back. I'm removing myself as Wendy from the stream. Sorry, guys. One more for the sounder, though.
Now, why does that matter? Why would the
Thunder.
Jazz do that? Why would they do that?
All right, Nick. Lots of Twitter questions. You ready to burn through them?
Let's do it.
Let's bounce them back and forth. I'll ask you. You ask me.
Okay.
First one. Oh, I'm in the wrong spot. Here we go. From Chris Parrish at Chris P. Parrish. Says, pick one star or on the cusp of stardom to trade for to fit this current roster, and what you would give up for that player, assuming that Chet fits well at the 5. Not saying, well, let's see how the season plays out. Let's assume Chet fits at the 5. Pick a realistic player that would fit this team.
Patrick Williams.
I like that one. Don't think he's like a borderline star, but I think he would fit very, very well.
I think there's a lot we have not seen with him. I just think he's being used in the worst, like a lot more to see with him. And I hope he gets traded, whether it's Oklahoma City or elsewhere, to show that.
My guy, not realistic at all, but I think would just fit like a glove. Scotty Barnes.
Oh,
it's not
the
happening.
keyword was realistic.
Yeah, not really realistic. But if you ran Shea, Dub, Josh, Barnes, Chet, that's disgusting.
Mm-hmm. It would be.
That is disgusting.
I'll do the next one here. We've got Walmart Woj at the Chet Effect. Do you think the Thunder have traded for these recent additions to allow a big name trade to be made and Oklahoma City can salary match them now? If so, which bigs are we looking at? That question was hard to decipher. So basically, they've traded for these recent additions. There's now, like we talked about, the opportunity to maybe make a consolidation trade. I guess kind of a similar question to the last time, but big specifically, like what bigs would you like to target, whether Chet works out or not, for this Thunder team?
Some people have mentioned DeAndre Ayton. Like, could you send those 3 big contracts they just took on and maybe someone else like a JRE or a J Will and bring back Ayton? Ayton's good. I just don't know if he fits what Sam Presti is building.
Would you not do that though?
It's interesting for sure.
You'd basically be getting like Ayton and realistically Ayton and multiple second round picks. Cause you got to look big picture. Like, how did the Thunder get these guys that they would aggregate? You'd be getting Ayton and multiple second round picks for nothing, basically, because these guys were fillers that came in for free, and JRE. Like, when you look at it that way,
it's enticing.
Attractive. I don't think the Suns would do it, to be clear, but from the Thunder point of view, why not?
Only other big currently in the league that intrigues me, like Kristaps Porzingis intrigued me.
Yeah,
that's not happening now.
Yep.
What do you think of this name, Nick? Wendell Carter Jr.
Oh, if you could get Wendell or Okongwu for that matter, like
Okongwu is another name. I like Okongwu a lot.
If you could do that, it should have been done yesterday, in my opinion.
Those are ones that I find interesting. All right.
Yeah.
You're up. Another Chet username from Chet for Depoy at Chet for Depoy.
Great name.
Given what we know about the roster today, who is the regular season rotation? Who is the playoff rotation? Let's say you get 10 guys for a regular season rotation. If you're watching the stream, you can see my 10 fingers. Nick's going to name guys. I'm going to lower a finger until we get to 10.
Shea, Josh, Lou, Dub, Chet, Poku, Kenrich, Isaiah Joe, Kason,
Micic or Oos?
Micic. Oh, Micic for sure.
All right. There's your 10.
I was gonna say somebody else. I'm glad you reminded me. This roster that used to be like ingrained in my head. I'm like having to think about who the hell's on this team right now. Yeah. And then the question,
you got
flip
8
side of
guys.
that's the playoff rotation, right?
8 guys for a playoff rotation.
You're cutting
2 of them.
You're cutting Poku And you are cutting. I think Kayson's a playoff player year one. Like, I really do. But we don't often see, especially in the Thunder regimes of the past. I don't know if that was a Presti philosophy or if that was a Billy D philosophy. Didn't really matter how good you were as a rookie. You didn't get playoff minutes unless you were just like stellar, which they didn't really have stellar rookies in those late years because they were picking late 20s. I guess I'd remove Kayson just because I think the other guys are more experienced and ready to do it.
In year 10, you excluded a guy that started 36 games for the Thunder.
Jay Will.
Averaged 6, 5, 1.5 assists.
Yep.
And Jay Will.
Yep.
Shot 40% from 3. It just goes to show you there's a lot of mouths to feed. And not everyone's going to get fed. They want practice, training camp, summer league. Yep. Everything's going to be a competition.
I think the primary reason, just real quick, primary reason I went that direction too is because it's been a trend in recent years that just because you played a bunch in year one, we've seen a lot of guys, their minutes fall off in year two. Like almost regularly.
Yeah.
So next one is from JC1991. Do you think Kenny Hustle's performance last season as center is the reason why Presti has acquired so many guards to change OKC into a flexible, positionless basketball unit? What does this mean for Poku, Jay Will, and the other quote-unquote bigs?
It's a great question. Presti talked a lot in his exit interview about unlocking stuff by playing small and how teams had to adjust to them. I think it's really interesting. I don't think that means you just have no bigs for the rest of eternity and you just play a bunch of small guys. But I think it means they are going to be a lot more flexible moving forward. You will see Kenny play some 5. You will see Jay Will play some 5. I think you're going to see Poku play a lot of 5. I think they're just going to throw out a lot of stuff. But I don't think it means they're like just going to ship off all the bigs. I do think they like playing small, though.
I think this will be a very analytics-driven season. Mark in the past has talked about the like analytics meetings they have after every single game to talk about like the deep numbers and who played well with who and ideal minutes and rotations and fits. I think they're less concerned about what position you play or how tall you are and more about like once you get a sample size, obviously, like if these 5 guards play really well together in a 5-guard lineup with Kenrich being the 5 as a quote unquote guard, they might play that rotation 18 minutes. And if it holds up, that rotation is going to play 18 minutes again the next night until it fails.
Yep. This next one's for you, Nick, from Lando Scott at Lando's Hot Takes. Not a question, but looking at the recent mock trades for Lillard, it makes you really appreciate Presti for getting the absolute haul he got for PG. I would also include Westbrook in that. We talked about this actually yesterday, Nick.
I do. I think barring the Utah Jazz trades with Mitchell and Gobert, because those were like, looking back now, big picture, it's like, how on earth did you guys pull that off? Like, shout out to the Jazz for doing what they did. Outside of those 2 deals, like since the PG and Westbrook trades that summer, a lot of the packages for stars have been super underwhelming, which is kind of expected because if you look back the last decade of trades for stars, you're never actually going to get full value for a star. It's just not how it works. Especially when you're one of the best players in the league individually. When you think about the package, like it's always going to be picks and young players that likely 50% of the picks end up being late or don't convey, or players that don't work out. Maybe the young players attached do or don't work out. You just never get full value for stars. Outside of Utah with those 2 and Sam Presti and the Chris Paul Westbrook trade and the PG SGA trade, I can't really think of other deals that were like, wow, that team really maximized the value of that star. And I think the Lillard packages, while they're underwhelming, that's just the way it is.
I agree. I agree.
It's interesting. We got one from Sean at Cubs fan 2033. Will there be a consolidation trade coming with all of these expiring contracts and with all of the draft capital? I think we touched on this some, so this may be more of a yes or no question. I'll expand on this question, Jacob. Will there be a consolidation trade in the next 365 days? Yes or no? And then I'm asking the same question within the next 3 years. Yes or no? Think consolidation like significant. We're not talking, 3 contracts for a guy that's going to play seventh man. Like we're talking the deal we've been discussing for 3 years now.
The Donovan Mitchell trade.
Yeah.
Nick, if you asked me this question 6 months ago, I'm saying yes. Where I'm at now, I'm kind of leaning no. Like they're not going to do the big trade. I think they just want to keep supplementing the team with future picks. That way, when Shea gets 28, 29, you have a first round pick from Philly that's coming in the pipeline, and it could end up being like a top 10 pick.
Yeah.
And you get the production that you got from like a J Will or a J Dub or whatever. And they're just, I almost wonder, like, do they already have their guys? And does Presti, with the way the new CBA is set up, want to trade those draft picks? I mean, obviously they will, but not for like a number 1 guy or a number 2 guy.
As you say that's something we haven't talked about, I don't think at all in this pod. We've talked about the idea of they like to kick the can down the road because they can't they can't use all the picks they have. But what if Sam kind of parlays this into a perpetual kicking the can down the road?
That's kind of what I'm thinking, Nick.
Like, we don't have to make this consolidation trade. We can just continue making these moves where it's like we use a first for a really impactful 6th man in a couple years, and the other ones we kick down the road, and you just continue to do that. And all of a sudden, like, the Thunder get really, really good, and they are a contending team, but they still have the 15 first rounders in the next 7 years. But instead of it being through 2028, now it's through 2035,
Mm-hmm. And
like,
JRE eventually leaves, and Trey Mann eventually leaves because they didn't work out.
Yep.
But then you perpetually have 2 first round picks in every draft, and you keep replenishing, and the roster always stays. The money always stays good, and the roster always stays kind of balanced in this like prime to early prime to pre-prime age.
Yep. You need those small contracts, especially as these guys start getting their maxes. Like, you need these early second rounders that are making next to nothing, and these mid to late first rounders that are just on a couple $1 million deals. The Denver Nuggets Miami Heat model. Like, we're going to draft a guy late first, and he's going to make nothing, but he might contribute in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. Christian Brown,
and you replace him. With all the picks they have, they could redraft a JRE type player every 3 years and never have to extend one of them.
Exactly. Next one from Colin Reed at Brother Reed 11. Who needs to perform better in Summer League, Trey Mann or Jeremiah Robinson Earl?
Trey Mann. Although I don't think any decisions are being made based on Summer League. I just think the ceiling...
It is a data point.
It is. But the ceiling, the projection, I think what the Thunder thought those 2 players could be, Trey Mann is far and away the better prospect. And so I think for him, it's like... And with the guard crunch, like, there's just more pressure on him.
Agreed.
Next one from the GOAT, Meek Leak, our guy in the chat. Give me your predictions on the Rockets 2024 pick. Jacob, I know you're going to love to talk about this one.
Interesting. They got Fred VanVleet for like $50 million a year. Shout out to my guy Fred for getting the bag. They needed to bring an adult in the room. So then they went and got Dylan Brooks. They said, Fred VanVleet doesn't if we're paying you this money, my guy, you're going to have to do some like some mentoring, not to the young guys, but to a basket case too. Besides that, they got their young guys. They traded away a lot of young guys. They're like the epitome of the MJ meme right now.
Yep.
Nick, are they going to make the play-in? Because I don't think so.
No.
Somebody said they're going to win 40 games. Somebody from The Athletic.
No. I'm going to pull up.
I think they are going to net the Thunder the overall 9th pick. And I think that's being generous to Houston.
That I agree with. And I'm gonna share my screen.
It was Washington.
Yep. Yeah, it's a great comp. So 2 things on the topic. One, naturally trading away these young guys for veterans. Like, the young guys were great. They had a lot of upside. But replacing them for even like a Jeff Green or a Dylan Brooks, like, they're going to be better. Straight up. Like, half their roster is now veterans, and last year it was not. It was all young guys. So they're going to be better. I don't think they're going to be good enough to make the play-in. Probably the biggest reason is, which is going to sound weird for a Rockets team, I don't know how they're going to score at a high level. Like, Dylan Brooks, insanely inefficient. Jalen Green, although I am super high on him and I think he can improve, was not efficient last year. Fred VanVleet shot 39% from the floor last year. There's a lot of guys on the roster. As good as their defensive upside could be, almost nobody on that roster shoots high percentage from the field. I don't think they have a player on their roster that shot over 38% from 3 last year. All that to say, the West is going to be loaded. If you look at last year, Spurs, I could see the Rockets being better than. Blazers, now that Dame's probably going to be gone, I could see the Rockets being better than. The Jazz, I kind of think they might be okay this year.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they might be on the same playing field as the Rockets. But from there, you got to assume Luka and Kyrie are only up from where they were last year. It doesn't get much worse than that. Thunder have improved. Pelicans should be better. Timberwolves, Lakers, like, from there, I don't know who is going to fall off. And so realistically, if you consider the top 11 teams are going to be the top 11 teams again, like, it probably will be those bottom 4 teams. So just to, if you're not on the podcast version, you can't see the screen, but I think that was, for me, just like walking through it, I don't see a way in which the Rockets are like better than 10th. 10th would be the best making the play-in.
I would be shocked if they got 10th.
Yeah.
And it's just interesting because they are the antithesis to Oklahoma City in like every way.
Oh, polar opposite.
It's wild. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's burn through these ones, Nick, because I do want to hit some of the ones in the chat as well. The chat's been awesome, so I want to answer some of their questions. Ghost of Frederick Douglass at Sea Green Monkeys says, "What the F is Presty doing?"
Smart things.
I like it.
But I understand, like, it's unorthodox, but I think it's smart.
You have to ask this next one, and I'm so excited for you to have to ask this next one.
Fine. I was going to see if you would just go ahead and read it, even though it's my turn to read because it's got my name in it.
I'll do it. From RR Burner 2, from RR Burner 22. Is there any potential we keep Oladipo next year? He rehabs and can be a good 10-5-5 guy off the bench. Also, tell Nick every once in a while he can have a fun opinion. Nick, every once in a while you can have a fun opinion.
Does fun mean like optimistic? 'Cause I'm always pessimistic, or what does fun mean?
I don't think you're generally pessimistic.
Then am I boring with my takes? I feel like I
don't know.
I feel like I've got some pretty off the wall takes sometimes.
You got to get some spice in there, Nick.
Blueface Baby says, "Let him cook." Hope he's talking about me because I'm about to cook. All
right, the Vic question.
The answer to the question: if Vic is a guy that you want to come be a 10-5-5 guy off the bench that probably can't play till December at the earliest, the answer is no, you should not keep him, because I think there's other guys on this roster that can be 10-5-5 off the bench pretty easily. Let me say that. Let me take it back. 10-5-5 is actually kind of hard to do, like 5 rebounds, 5 assists. I don't know if anybody besides Shea and Josh could actually pull that off. Maybe J-Dub. But if you want a guy that scores 10 points and then also is a passer rebounder for you, someone besides Oladipo can do that.
I just love Victor Oladipo.
I do too.
Hey,
I do too.
Doesn't K? This might be a wild miss. Does K-Song play the saxophone or some sort of musical instrument?
I know Max Lewis did, and that was a bunch of
Okay.
talk before the draft, but I wouldn't be surprised if Kason did too.
I thought K-Song played some instrument because I was going to say Presty's got the drums. K-Song can play. Mr. Feathery can sing. Maybe he's just putting together a band.
Googling Kason Wallace. He does play the saxophone. He does.
Hey, there you go. They're going to start a jazz band.
Isn't that weird? Multiple draftees are big saxophone players.
You got the next question.
Next question from Jonah Veet 353240. Should we maximize Chet's 3-point shooting by putting him as a KD type of player?
Role-wise, I think he's going to be more like a center than KD was. Offensively, I think he will handle a little bit less. I think he will still be very involved, but KD would do a lot of isolation stuff. That's just not the type of team they're building. I don't think Chet's going to do a ton of ISO stuff. I'm so fascinated to see what it's going to look like because I think, I've said it tons of times, I think he can fundamentally change the way that this team plays basketball. Absolutely fundamentally change the way this team looks.
I agree with you. He will not be the same type of player as KD. Like if you were to watch them on film side by side, they would look like different players. They're both skinny 7-footers. Will look like different players. But I think if you compare their statistics, at least on the offensive efficiency side of things, like the whole 7-footer, but 50, 40, 90.
I think there's a chance.
That is
next year.
That could be very similar.
Yes.
That could be very, very similar.
Real quick, Nick. 11 months from now, when we're looking at the Thunder's statistics from the 2023-2024 season, where is Chet going to rank in points per game? Which spot is he in? First, second, third, fourth, fifth, 10th, 15th?
In which season?
Next year.
Oh, next year.
12 months from now, when we look back, where does he fall on the list? Whenever you pull up the spreadsheet and you sort it by points per game.
I'm going to go 4th.
Wow.
Is in
Shea
higher
Josh
or
Dub?
low? Yeah, Shea Josh. I think this is going to be, maybe people disagree with me. As good as Dub is offensively, Josh at the end of the season started to show this willingness to you know what? I'm 6'9", 200 and something pounds. I can bully every small guard that's on me. I'm going to back him down and do stuff.
He's a dog.
Combined with another summer with Chip, I think we've thought about Josh as this passing jumbo guard.
Man.
That dude could be a legit scorer. He has it in him 100%.
I agree. You know when I knew he had it in him?
When he wanted to fight Josh Richardson?
Oh, that was dope. But no, whenever he bodied the absolute shit out of
the summer league guy.
No, the kid from the Nets. Who's the big man for the Nets? Claxton? And then two smalled them on the way down, and I was
what about the summer league dunk on that Sixers guy?
And J-Dub's in the background just doing the head top.
Yes.
Next one from
starting tomorrow night. That's back.
Oh, dude. From Thunder Up Yours at Thunder Upper, with the current roster, rank who you think the top 6 players will be.
That's a really hard question based on impact, I guess. The best 6 players.
Best 6 players.
And we have to rank them.
5 starters 1 through 5?
No.
You're dropping Lou?
I'm dropping Lou. I think I'll give you the order too. Shea 1. I know it's a really hot take.
No. Just the stream, the comments is just there's been some.
Oh my god!
They're just sending me
that most recent one. Good grief!
Connor is a degenerate.
Connor is a degenerate, but I freaking love it. I wish I could read that on the chat, but I definitely cannot do that. Shea number 1. Again, Josh 2. Like, I think that kid's gonna. He might flirt with All-Star this year.
He's good, dude.
He's so good. J-Dub 3. Micic 4.
Wow. Okay.
Like I think the ramp, like Chet's ceiling is beyond Micic, like not even comparable. But I do think he's got the skills and the experience to like do a lot of stuff this year. Chet 5.
He said top 6, right?
Golly, that's tough.
Is Dort 6? Is
I don't
Kason
think Dort's
6?
6. I don't think
Is Oos
Kason's
6? Is Kenny
No.
Hustle 6?
I think Kenny Hustle's 6.
All right.
Like Dort and Kason will probably both have better stats than Kenny. But I think the impact on the game and winning, he's just so damn good.
I agree.
He's probably the best player in the NBA that nobody outside of OKC and crazy Lakers fans that want to trade for everybody at the deadline knows about.
Let's hit some chat comments before we get out of here. There are a lot. It's going to take me like half a day to like scroll through all of these. I'm moving really quick. Where would you rank this off season so far? Just in terms of general Thunder off seasons.
One of the more exciting ones. I think it's still to be seen. Like, if nothing else happens, I think it's probably like an above average off season. I don't think it's like the best they've ever had, but one of the most interesting, probably. I'll put it that way.
Okay, I like it. I would also put it like top. There's been a lot of movement.
Yeah.
It's not. I think number 1, far and away, is the Paul George summer.
Yeah.
They got Paul George and Carmelo Anthony and Patrick Patterson.
And 2, it's easy to remember like the recent stuff. Almost every offseason, we're talking about the same stuff, like roster crunch. There's all these guys. Someone good's gonna get cut, and then a year later, we forget all like the little intricacies.
Yeah, like and also just it doesn't really matter. Like Teo Maladone.
Yeah. In the moment, though, it felt like a big thing.
Yeah, for sure. Matt says, this week I listened to your podcast from Chet's Summer League debut. That was you and me, Nick. It was good. I expect more overreaction this week. You know, I'm going to be like one of the only people in the office tomorrow. I might pop in my headphones and listen to that just to reminisce a little bit.
That was, we talked about, you and I on a 2-man pod recently talked about this. Like, that was one of the most jaw-dropping, and it shouldn't have been because it's Summer League, but one of the most jaw-dropping debuts I have ever seen in my entire life. It was. We already ranted about it. Let's go back and listen to the pod if you want to hear more about that.
I like legitimately was just like walking around my living room, just talking shit to nobody.
Wearing your jorts.
Eamon says, Presti obviously wants to play small. How confident are we in Kason and Micic's ability to guard longer players and to rebound?
Micic isn't small.
I don't know how he is as a defender. I think Kason can guard like 1 through 3. I think Kason is a dog.
Oh, Kason can guard a lot of these, like wannabe, like the Grant Williams type 4s. Kason on lock. But Micic, I don't know how much I buy the defense. Like, he's not a bad defender from what I've seen on tape, and admittedly, it's not like I've studied his game for hours and hours, but I've seen a few hours of tape and watched a few games. Like, doesn't seem like a defensive liability, but he is, when they, like, if you look at his stats, his height, his weight, like 6'5", he looks way bigger. Maybe it's the European competition, but he looks huge on the floor for a guard.
Yeah. They got a lot of like bigger dudes. I think Micic does have that dog in him too. Yeah. So they're just going to get after it. Sean says, Poku not extended. Is he getting the Darius Baisley treatment?
No. I think there's still
They
a
have-
very high probability he gets extended.
Yeah, the only guys that get the extension like at this point are the max guys,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
extend those other extensions for guys of Poku's caliber or better, but aren't max guys. Those come in October,
Right.
like right before the season. Like think back to whenever they extended like Vic Oladipo and Steven Adams.
Yep.
Kerry, who is going to be down in Vegas, we're going to link up with Kerry.
What up, Kerry?
He says, I think the biggest thing for Trey is consistency. What would be a good stat line at Summer League for him, for you to get excited about Trey?
The only two statistics for Trey that matter are field goal percentage and assists. I don't care if it's a high percentage on 5 shots or 25 shots. I want to see him shoot efficiently, and I want to see him dish the rock because he was a point guard at Florida and dished out quite a few assists, more than Kobe Buffkin, I would add, in his breakout sophomore season. So I want to see that from Trey. Like he's more than just a scorer. I think he's yet to show it to Thunder fans at the NBA level.
Dashin 10 says Pascal Siakam trade.
Yes, to a team that's not in Oklahoma City.
They're just going to kind of run it back in Toronto, except with Dennis Schroeder as Fred VanVleet.
That's horrific. They are going to end up being the Washington Wizards, where they could have gotten all this value for OG and Pascal and still had like this interesting rebuild and sat on it for way too long.
I totally agree. Sean says, Jacob, do you have your Micic jersey yet? I do not. Should I? I'm a man of my word. Should I get a EuroLeague Micic jersey, or am I getting a Thunder Micic jersey?
A Serbia.
Oh, that'd be dope.
That'd be sick. They actually have sick jerseys too.
I might have to get a... Nick, putting you on the spot.
Okay.
Canada has SGA and Lou.
Yeah.
Australia has Josh and Jack White and Patty Mills, who's on the team.
You flipped me off?
No, I'm counting on my fingers.
Okay.
Serbia has Poku and Micic.
Yep.
I guess Latvia has Bertans. If you choose Latvia, I'm going to think you're
Latvian laser, baby.
You have to choose one FIBA team to cheer for. Which of the Thunder FIBA teams is it?
I'll rank them for you. I'm going to go Canada 1. I'm going to go Australia
Canada's
2.
got a squad, my guy.
They're good. Canada 1, Australia 2, Serbia 3.
Wow, the Poku.
I was
ratio.
really close to putting Australia 1.
I like
They got some dudes.
Fadeaway NBA says, who's the best looking player on the Thunder?
In terms of like physical appearance,
I guess.
I'll reframe the question. Who's got the most riz? It's Josh Giddey.
100%. It's not close.
Yeah.
Matt asks, is it possible the team has too many players who should be playing? Like, will they not be able to build a cohesion? I think that's an interesting question because there's a lot of guys that need to play.
I think it might be rough early. But I think with the Thunder system, have we ever really seen a Thunder team that hasn't meshed?
I think maybe this year it takes longer than normal because I think they're gonna play like 13 guys a game, Nick.
I don't know about that. I think they're still gonna go with the philosophy of, you gotta. Oh my God.
So, are you seeing the comments that I'm seeing?
The chats, yes.
Will Andrews, also well-known degenerate.
I think you're gonna have to do the whole everybody gets an opportunity in like October, November into December. But if the calendar year turns and this team is like 4th or 5th seed in the West, I think it's one of those like in the past years they've done the whole we're going to play a competitive team and see what happens. And it ends up being they're not good and they end up being a bottom team. Even last year was like They could be okay, but we'll see what happens. This year, I think they'll see what happens, and if December comes around and they're good, the rotation is going to be like, all right, guys, we're gunning for the playoffs now. I think this is the year they do that. It goes from 13 to a 10-man rotation like that.
I could see it. G11 says, Prestige going to an Assets Anonymous meeting. That's a good one.
Shit, he runs it.
Sean asks, can you aggregate all three of the big contracts that Thunder got with the rules? I believe you can because they were traded into cap space. So I think you can aggregate.
And I don't know how many of them are actually official.
None.
You're right. I think
because they don't have cap
that's
space until the 6th.
That's the key, right?
Mm-hmm. Carrie asks, who do you think starts tomorrow?
Oh, that is so fun. Great question, Carrie. Chet, Dub, J. Will, Oos,
and Trey.
Yeah, you got to start Trey. Like you kind of have to from a confidence perspective.
That's a lot of big guys.
If that dude's coming off the bench on a summer league team, it ain't good.
I'm trying to see if there's any more questions we got to hit.
Make sure you don't hit the wrong one.
Besides Sam, which GMs do you guys respect what they are doing? I don't think he's technically the GM. He's the president, but why am I going blank? The Boston guy that's now in Utah.
Boston guy that's now in Utah.
He was Boston GM. Then he promoted. Dude, I'm horrible with names right now.
Oh, Brad Stevens.
He promoted Brad Stevens, and then he went over to Utah. And he's like president over at Utah. And he's got somebody working underneath him. He brought over the Utah coach. What's that guy's name?
I know exactly who you're talking about.
Denny Ainge. The whole chat. The chat got me.
Yeah. No, I was blanking on it as you talked about as well. Yeah, no, I agree. He's going back to like the Gobert and Mitchell trade, along with taking Keontae George, Bryce Sensabaugh, and Taylor Hendricks. Like that franchise is a different kind of rebuild than Oklahoma City. Mm-hmm. I think they were like maybe kind of similar because Oklahoma City was not horrible once they traded everybody because they had Chris Paul, but the Jazz, I think, will probably never like bottom out. They're going to be good as soon as next year. Like they may never actually have a bad season during the rebuild.
Lots of people in the chat are
jorts. We gotta start having we gotta have a jorts t-shirt or something in our merch catalog now that jorts is an inside joke on the Uncontested Degenerate stream.
We're gonna hit a few more because people have started commenting on like some of the questions we're answering. Sean asked, can someone tell me how Taylor did not get rate limited this weekend on Twitter? That's a good one. Meek says, you're a school teacher, right? Put the game on in class, call it study. Meek, two things. Number one, I don't know what stuff is like over in your part of the world, but school's been out for like a month here, over a month. Number two, I do not teach anymore. Making a little bit more money. Blueface Baby says, best or favorite pod episode?
Oh, ever? I mean, the Chet one's got to be up there. The Chet debut.
The Chet Summer League debut, yeah.
We potted when the Thunder traded for Paul George.
That was a big one.
No.
We were a podcast not that summer. We started right before the playoffs that year.
Are you sure?
100%.
Okay. God, the most fun episode. I'll say it this way: our first time recording in the Blue Wire studio.
That was dope.
Although it wasn't like the biggest like content grab of like something crazy happened, just like from a podcast peaking standpoint, like we could have ended the pod right there forever and been good.
More comments. We got Kaysen is easily on the best looking. He's so cute. Shay's the cutest, and it's not close. Connor says Josh Grizzy, which I think is pretty good. few more in here. Everyone correcting me on Ainge. I think that's all because we've been podcasting for like a really, really long time. Meek says the best podcast episode was the post game after the 73-point loss to the Grizzlies.
Poor Silva. I've actually never listened to that pod.
Neither did I. I told Silva I might come on because it was his first post game ever, and I was like, bro.
That was his first post game ever?
Yeah.
Oh,
You guys can blame JD for that one.
that's horrible.
All right, let's get out of here. We podcasted for way too long. Thank you guys so much. The chat, you guys are incredible. Join us tomorrow night after the Thunder take on the Utah Jazz in Salt Lake City Summer League. Basketball is back, at least for a little bit. We're going to see some of our favorite guys play. It's going to be a blast. Follow us all week as we will have post games after every Summer League game. And then Taylor, Justin, Nick, and I will all be out in Vegas with a ton of content for you all. So keep it posted to all the Uncontested social channels, YouTube, and the podcast feed. You'll get more stuff like what you're seeing on your screen right now. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We will talk to you again in about 24 hours. Until then, as always, Thunder up.